Hello, fellow internet dweller. This is Vince, and this is the RR Show. Andy will be here in just a moment, but I would have a kind request, a little ask. If you would go onto the podcast platform from which you're listening to this episode, give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. So yeah, we've got r/ProRevenge, user Wreck Yoshit, partner with limited authority over management, playing from workers' dugout though.
I had recently partnered with a small production facility in my area. Our contract was based on capital investment along with designing/implementing new automation processes. 2-year outlook finished in 8 months. It was a typical small production facility comprised of 50 production workers through 2 shifts of 12 hours that ran 2 days on then 3 days off. Also had 2 production supervisors for each shift and 1 maintenance supervisor for each shift. The people and their attitude is what ultimately led to my decision to be more than an outside contractor for this company. Until I worked the night shift for a week due to shutdowns that needed to occur to implement certain line upgrades. This is where I met him. We will call him Richard Head. Richard seemed like a nice guy in our first few encounters. And then I heard him in his element, directing his maintenance crew at night over the radio. He would belittle this group of guys who were there to do a set task list every night for whatever machinery they were doing preventative maintenance on. Unless something broke on the line, which would require attention first, obviously. I have never heard grown men spoken to like this and never heard any nasty remarks back or defending themselves. He would call them stupid on the radio if they were having trouble troubleshooting a problem. Call some fat and lazy. Called one black guy the N-word. The guy had been there since they opened the doors and, to be honest, made me want to rescind any commitment I have ever made to this company. When I escalated this up to the plant manager, he assured me it was friendly banter and they rarely had complaints against him. True, because anyone who ever did so in confidence of anonymity was always outed and then singled out until they were terminated by him. Since no one was going to listen to me, I decided to do my due diligence and started to document everything I heard on the radio with a date and time, witnesses to the treatment, and what rights the individuals was having violated due to our state and federal outlines. I made this spreadsheet my entire time in the shift, documenting every personal account I witnessed as well. Harassment is a major problem with industry work, but the one that I have learned is the company killer is retaliation. If you can prove that, then they stand no chance. I saw him one night tearing down this 50-year-old man who requested 2 days off, to the point that I wanted to lose my cool, but I knew I would ruin all the information I was gathering. Days off were because his nephew was just in a car accident 2 days prior and had to have multiple reconstructive surgeries scheduled. I knew that now was the time to move on everything. I rounded up all the maintenance guys and shared all my documentation with them. They didn't realize the importance of this information like I had. They just said nothing will change. Nothing changed because no one treats an issue as an issue if you come with incorrect, non-detailed information. The fact that he used the radio so much was a godsend that they didn't see as well. When he spoke this way to people, he must not have ever realized that there are other supervisors on shift and that they, in fact, unintentionally became the strongest witness in the case. Especially when you have some audio recordings verifying the accounts. They have no choice but to acknowledge what they have heard. Each worker took their logs, and even though I have a capital time investment in this company, I urged them, at a minimum, to petition to have this man removed or to threaten legal action. Once they coordinated a day to expose all this, it was like watching a sports movie when the underdogs take the championship and get the girl at the same time. Not only did the man finally get fired, but the entire atmosphere around the place changed more than I could imagine. Older machines ran the best they have ever ran in my time there, and people loved coming to work again. They also put a placard on my door for when I came in about a week later. It said "Number 1 Boss." But the boss was crossed out and hand engraved under it was the word "badass." I obviously removed it from my door, but I put it in my home office, and it is probably the best thing I have ever received from a facility. I have been kept locked in a basement for months. I have recorded the coolest episodes for the best show on the internet. And I haven't so much as got a mug, let alone a plaque. I would love a plaque. Our next one is from Orc Lemon. Don't mess with an engineer. I worked for a company that provides specialized equipment used in manufacturing. To protect my anonymity, I'll have to be vague about what exactly this machine does. During my time working in this field, I got to know many clients who would need these machines installed and serviced. One of these customers we'll call Jake. I later left the company for a different job, but Jake apparently kept my number. One afternoon, I got a call from Jake that they wanted a new unit installing and another unit needed maintenance, and wanted to know if I was available. I let him know that I left the company, but that I could pass him on to someone who could help. He tells me he'll pay twice my current rate to install the unit over the weekend. He lets me know that the company has increased the rates for installation and the company just can't afford it. The instructions they sent over just weren't clear enough, and their engineers are scratching their heads trying to figure it out. He begs me to consider it, and I agree. For more context, installing this unit can take a good few hours, or up to a day on your own. The company gives you two options. You can either pay for an engineer to come and install it, or you can save money and they'll send instructions so the customer's own engineers can install it. The instructions aren't easy to follow, and it's company policy that if someone has started to install the equipment, the supplier wouldn't get involved since they couldn't verify that any of the pieces were broken. This will be important later. I drive down on the weekend and they show me the boxes of equipment. I set to work and make good progress installing the unit. Around 6 hours in, and I'm stopped by Jake, who greets me. I let him know I'm nearly finished, and he tells me, "Sorry, but they just don't have the budget to pay you." He understood my frustration, but his engineers can take it from here. To say I was frustrated was an understatement. I wanted revenge. There's a small button inside the unit that changes the unit into test mode. This is done to perform maintenance on the unit, but it's impossible to configure the unit with this button pressed. It's only possible to reach this button using a pin, so it's not easily pressed during installation. Because of this, the installation instructions don't mention it. There's no real way of telling the equipment is in test mode. It just won't work normally. I think you can guess where this is going. I click the button, collect my things, and leave. Monday morning, I get a call from Jake. I declined. I knew my old company wouldn't get involved since I already started installing the unit. I knew his engineers would never figure it out. I just had to let him stew. A few days later, with many missed calls, I finally pick up. Jake is furious. He asks me where the hell I've been and why I haven't been picking up the phone. He tells me they can't figure out how to configure the machine and they need my help. I tell him, "Why is this my problem? You won't pay me." He told me he was sorry and that he would work something out if I could get there as soon as possible. I told him, "Oh no, you're going to pay me $7,000 up front before I do anything." Oh, I'd never felt this powerful before. He screamed at me for a bit and hung up. He called back a day later after saying he's sorry for how he acted and said if I could come fix it he would pay me, in a totally defeated tone. He tried to fight it, saying he'll pay me when it was done, but I was having none of that. After a bit of back and forth, he agrees to pay me. The money hit my account and I came in the next day. The look of confusion over his face when I took out a pin and changed the unit from test mode was priceless. It was even more priceless seeing his reaction to me packing up my tools and leaving after only 20 minutes of configuring. Easiest $7,000 I've ever made. Do not try to mess with a professional problem solver. Yes, I would imagine that professional problem solvers would also be very, very good at creating problems, having seen so many that they have solved. Our next story is from Quiet Fangirl. Mum takes down the HOA from the inside. My neighborhood does not have a homeowners association. At least, not anymore. When my parents first moved in, my sibling, maybe 2 years old, and with me as a glowworm, there was a HOA. They took money from the neighborhood in exchange for their services. At first, for quite a while, my parents just kind of shrugged it off. The HOA shoveled the snow off the streets in winter and dealt with trash collection, so they were doing something worthwhile, right? Ha, no. The city controlled the snowplows and garbage trucks, not the HOA. But still, there was the illusion of effort, and besides, one summer they decided to contact a company to plant new trees all over the neighborhood. The fact that the company was owned by the son of the head of the HOA was totally coincidental. The trees were the beginning of the end for the HOA. Why? Well, my grandma on my dad's side was visiting when they came around to plant the trees. My grandma is a certified master gardener, and so she stared through the windows of our house as the guy planting the trees just dropped the saplings on the grass. Still with their roots inside the bag they came in. No holes dug, no holes cut. Just a bagged sapling lying on the grass like a pathetic and sad stick. The sapling laid there all night. No one came back to actually do their job and plant them. My master gardener, Grandma mentioned offhand that those saplings were going to die unless they got in the soil. And something clicked in my mum's head. She was paying the HOA money, actual money, every month, while both she and my dad worked, taking care of 2 very little kids, seeing us to daycare and preschool and arranging babysitters and feeding us, and the homeowners association was just going to pull this half-assed bullshit instead of do what she's paying them for. No fucking way. So she showed up to the head of the HOA's house and basically demanded that the trees get planted properly, like she's apparently paying for them to do. The head of the HOA, so excited for someone actually caring about the neighborhood, made their second mistake. They asked if my mum wanted to join the HOA. She agreed. The trees were planted, but most didn't make it. My grandma was right. First things first, my mum showed up at the next HOA meeting. There were like 5 people there. No wonder they asked my mum to join. They desperately needed the people. So Mum looked at the collection of white people, herself included, who weren't even paying money to the HOA like the rest of the neighborhood. All the contractors the HOA called in were close relatives of other HOA members and weren't paid by the HOA. After all, they're family. So my mum started digging. She spent pretty much a full summer taking down the HOA before she had to go back to teaching in the fall. With me carted along after her dad and my siblings are old enough to be in school or daycare, she dug through the years of paperwork detailing the HOA's financial situation. And she found something extremely enlightening. The HOA didn't actually do anything. Well, they didn't do anything to benefit the community. Everything they claimed to do was either covered by the individual homeowner or by the city itself. So they were collecting money from all of the neighborhood residents under the false pretense and they weren't even supposed to be in our neighborhood. Their association zone was a whole different neighborhood. So what is a working mother of 2 small children to do while her husband is off at work and she's off for the summer? Well, she goes door to door with pamphlets. Me and my sibling in a stroller as she weaves her way through the neighborhood blocks, pamphlets explaining the situation and how to stop paying for services you'll never get. Pamphlets that are, of course, written in both English and Spanish to account for the high amount of Latino and Hispanic people in the neighborhood. Ooh, and naturally she got a lawyer and an accountant. It put a major dent in her pocket, but if it meant the neighborhood wasn't exploited for money each month, it was worth every penny. Another HOA member helped her sift through the documents and data and passed out pamphlets and encouraged people to show up at the meetings, but had to back out because of work-related reasons. My mum rolled up to the courthouse, flanked by the lawyer and accountant, her kids safe at home with her husband, and had more than enough evidence to get the Homeowners Association the fuck out of her neighborhood, expose the fraudsters for the frauds that they were, and make sure that no HOA would ever push their luck in our neighborhood. It's been almost 19 years, and no one's even tried making another homeowners association in our neighborhood. You know, I absolutely hate HOAs. They are always full of scumbaggery. Just so many stories about HOAs, and it's like, they tell you what to do with your house. You buy a house, you buy land, it's your house, your land, and then some arsehole comes along and gives you rules. No, motherfucker, this is my house. The whole point of my house is I own it and do whatever the fuck I want. Go away. Our next story is from Blue-Eyed Brunette. I don't like liars. This happened 5 years ago, and is still one of my proudest moments. I was dating this guy, Dan, going through a custody battle with his ex-girlfriend over their toddler. We worked at the same bar with this girl named Billie Jean. Billie Jean was an old friend of Dan and had worked with him before. She also had previously worked with the mother of Dan's child, Rachel, and everyone was seemingly friends and remaining civil. Or so I thought. Billie Jean had secretly taken sides and wrote a terrible affidavit lying about Dan. Dan somehow got a copy of it. I don't remember how the court process went. As I was reading it, I kept getting more and more irate. I hate liars. And one thing I really feel that crosses a boundary is using a child for leverage to hurt the other parent. Billie Jean was knowingly lying under oath and siding with Rachel to prevent Dan from parenting his kids. And he was by no means a bad dad. Well, Billie Jean had enemies that I worked with and had easy access to contact. These enemies had sold Billie Jean a car that she wasn't paying them for. I didn't necessarily like the people that owned the car, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I called them up and I told them I came in peace. I asked if they had Billie Jean's address to get back their car. They did not. I passed off Billie Jean's info and waited for her to call me. Now, I was one of two people who could have ratted out the location of the car, and when Billie Jean called me to tell me her car got repoed, she said she had no idea who could have done it. It would have either been me or her ex, Robbie. I tell her casually, I don't think it was Robbie, and I swear up and down she responded with, well, who would have done it then? I held back laughter and finished the conversation with a half-assed, oh, that's so weird, type comment until she hung up. Dan was next to me in the car, snickering. Dan won shared custody of his children, and Billie Jean lost her bar job because she didn't have transportation to work at any hour. To this day, I wonder if she ever pieced together that it was me. I don't like liars.
So thanks for being with us. The RR Show is a production of Evergreen Podcasts and Wessler Media. Now, if you'd be so kind, please follow or subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra nice, you might as well leave a 5-star review. But for more, visit the website, rrshow.com. That is rrshow.com. I'm your host, Vince. Thank you to my producer, Kevin, and we'll see you next time here on The RR Show.